Great. Welcome, everybody. We are on page 37, right at the bottom, the last paragraph. We ended off with a bit of the jaywalker last week. I think let's start again. Let's reintroduce the jaywalker to you. Last week, we spoke a bit about Jim, and Jim was really, really bent out of shape and, driven by resentments and the restlessness, irritability, and the discontent, which is the state we're in, untreated. And now we're going to go look at a jaywalker. Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink, acting out, food, gambling, making debt, as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. But let's line that out as a passion for drinking, for drugs. He gets a thrill out of in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings, friends and family, frothy emotional appeal. We hear about that in the doctor's opinion. Come on, can't you just drink like a lady? Why don't you just drink like the rest of us? Why can't you go home the same time that we all do? There's no drinking like a lady for this lady. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Let's just stop there. Let's go see where else they speak about this kind of thinking and these kind of behaviors. We can't stop, even though we know it's injurious. It's in the doctor's opinion. My favorite page, Roman numerals XXVIII. So that's page 28. Men and women drink essentially because they like, I'm going to change the sentence a little bit. Alcoholic men and women drink, act out, drug, essentially because they love the effect produced by alcohol, sex, drugs, food. I'm changing it up, guys. I'm making this book work for us. The sensation is so elusive that while I admit it is injurious, I cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. Excuse me. Just want to make a note as well, a jaywalker. Yes, hold on. Before I start, let's hear what Bill's got to say.
Well, since this is being recorded and probably scrutinized by Steve, let's not change the book. We established last week that people in general drink alcohol for the effect. No one drinks bourbon for the taste unless you've acquired a taste over a long period of time. What happens is that paragraph that you just were referring to kind of segues from drinkers into alcoholic drinkers who can no longer differentiate the true from the false, because the sensation that alcoholics get from alcohol, although it's a sense of ease and comfort that other people get without impunity, connects us to the divine, which is our problem, the disconnect. So temporarily and artificially, what it does is it gives us connection with the power. We pursue that into the gates of insanity or death because we wonder why eventually we are not familiar that it's artificial. We don't really have a connection. It wasn't real. And I want to say one thing before we turn the page here. Notice it says we're talking about an individual. Number one, I looked up the word passion, and it means an emotion almost uneasily controlled. So it's beyond just a strong sentiment. I have a passion for a lot of things, but my behavior in pursuit of those passions is not as absurd, that means preposterous, or incomprehensible. Who can comprehend why I'm taking the first drink after friends are mystified and horrified and bewildered when I walk directly into a saloon when I just got out of a psych ward, a bankruptcy or divorce court? So they're making clear the distinction, not with my behavior once I start to drink, my behavior from a position of sobriety, or for lack of a better word, because sometimes we mistake that for recovery, from my position of abstinence, the insanity that precedes the first drink, which essentially chapter 3 is dedicated to talking about the thought life of the alcoholic, leading back to the first drink, compelling back to the first drink, nonchalantly taking the first drink, or taking it with little serious deliberation, or even in a celebratory fashion, like the guy who settled a business deal favorable to him and his company. Thank you, Nadja.
Thank you, my brother. You know, when you started off what you said, you just took me right back to my first drink. And I've shared it on this meeting many, many times. It's exactly what you said. That first drink was akin to me meeting God and all the angels. I lit this, the skies opened, and I heard a chorus of angels singing to me, and I knew this was what I wanted. And I would pursue it to the gates of insanity and almost death. Thank you. So let's just have a look at the top of page 38, right at the top. Here's a chap who has queer ideas of fun. Let's flesh this out a little bit. What are queer ideas of fun for guys and gals like us? Having unprotected sex in the 80s when there was AIDS going around, everybody, kind of halted and ran for condoms and, protected sex. And that was the order of the day. I don't know. I had queer ideas of fun, man. I didn't I didn't suit up and armor up like the rest of them. Drunk driving. In our country, in South Africa, we have traffic officers on every street corner. We have a policy called zero tolerance for alcohol and drunk driving. And that meant I was untouchable. I was invisible. They did not see me. They did. And, yes, I was safe and protected. When I look back at the times that I should have and could have and didn't, jail runs, in and out of jails, in and out of holding cells, ODs, many, many trips to hospitals, being hooked up and juiced up to glucose strips, etc., just to get out of the state that I was in, and buying drugs off street corners, not from my usual drug dealer that everybody knew and everyone had on his phone number. If I had to get a kick and I felt like it right now, I didn't have time to wait for him. These are the queer ideas of fun that I had. Is this your experience? Luck then deserts him. I'm going to resume reading. And he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Let's go see what the book says about us and the word normal. Let's go to page 30. Page 30, and let's look at the second paragraph. It says there, the delusion that we are like normal other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. We are delusional if we think we are like other people. We are bodily and mentally different to our fellow man. A lot of us don't want to hear that. A lot of us had a huge knee-jerk reaction when our sponsors took us through those words. A lot of us still maybe prickle hair on the back of our necks, because our whole lives, if you're anything like me, your whole life, you just wanted to belong somewhere. Because you didn't belong at home. You're waiting for your mother to dish out the adoption papers. You're waiting for the UFO to come fetch you because you don't belong anywhere, but you desperately want to belong somewhere. And then the minute you belong somewhere, you act the clown. You're doing all the radical stuff, queer ideas of fun. But when I came to AA, I came home. So I came home and I saw that you all felt exactly the same way that I did. Presently, back on page 38, first paragraph, presently he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you, whoa, look here, check how self makes a decision. He tells you that he has decided his own thinking, he's decided that he's going to stop jaywalking for good. But in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. We believe a lie and we get drunk again. And that is the thing. We believe the lie itself tells us. We got this. It'll be different next time. It's the friends. Move to a different town. Lay off the hard tack. Don't go to that street corner. Get rid of the husband. Get rid of the wife. We continue. Yeah, Bill, go ahead. I just want to
So
go ahead.
something just stood out to me that I've read 100 times and it never dawned on me so at this point, within a week after having left the hospital, fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. At this point, he recognizes that there's something wrong because he tells us he has decided to stop jaywalking for good. I'm going to stop driving or I'm going to stop drinking, but I'm not going to do both. I've identified the problem. It's those trolley cars. But what I'm saying is at this moment, presently, he is telling us that this person recognizes that he has a problem when he's out on the street and he's going to stop jaywalking. He identifies the problem. If he doesn't jaywalk, he doesn't get hit by cars, buses, boats, trains, and airplanes. So what's he going to do? He's going to mend his behavior at this point. He understands what the problem is and makes a commitment to not do it.
Yeah,
So
thank
how
you.
many
We
of us have
try.
quit drinking? On page 30, they tell us a bunch of remedies, swearing off with and without a solemn oath, switching from this, doing that. We're trying to do something to either control or eliminate drinking because we've identified that drinking is causing some problems. So he says to you, in a state of delusion, as Nadia said, I'm going to stop jaywalking altogether. And then the next paragraph says, guess what? On through the years. Go ahead, Nad.
Yeah, thank you. That's it. Another thinking word. He has decided. That's it. That's the thing. Because where does this disease center? In a bottle? In a bag? In beer? In too much wine? Is it cocaine? Is it crack? Is it women? Is it gambling? Is it food? Where does this disease center? It centers in our mind. Continuing, page 8, the second paragraph. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work, his wife gets a divorce, and he is held up to ridicule. Our
So
jaywalker
what
friend
does
is in
careful
pretty,
mean
pretty
here,
bad
Nadia?
shape.
What's he going to be careful about? It's not like the trolley cars are jumping off the curb to hit him. They're not coming out of the street. None of these things that are happening are other than of his own making. So isn't that interesting? Now I'm gonna quit jaywalking altogether, or I'm gonna stay off the streets. I am going to stop jaywalking. Okay, he doesn't say stay off the streets yet, but here's what he says in the next paragraph. I'm going to be careful, or I'm going to avoid alcohol at all costs. I'm going to be careful next time I drink. I'm going to stop with the second or the third and go home. Or I'm not going to go anywhere near alcohol because I think that alcohol is my problem. A moment ago, he identified what the problem was, jaywalking. Now it's not necessarily jaywalking. It's his inability to avoid these vehicles or be careful when he's running in front of them. I mean, look at the mindset in this guy. I never really realized. I'm glad you decided to read this for the second time because I'm seeing stuff that I did not see. I'm not saying it wasn't there, but I did not see a week ago. It's interesting.
That's the magic book. Well, we open the pages and sparks and glitter fly out, and you read it off for the first time, and all of a sudden something else comes out of you. Let's talking about the obsession of the mind. We have a mind. You can move to the Antarctic and an Eskimo will find you with a bottle of whiskey. We'll hear about that later. But you have a mind. If you do not have a spiritual solution, you're not picked up the simple spiritual toolkit that has been laid at your feet, you have a mind that will compel you to drink, to get back in front of a trolley car. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. There's another thinking word. I don't know what color highlighter you guys are using. But remember, we're highlighting all the thinking words in this chapter. Let's get that one out, because there it is. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. Affirmations on my mirror. You are loved. You are worthy. I thought that I was, I thought it's because I hated myself so much, and I ended up in strange beds and, vomiting for 3 days and in like 3-day stints. So I'd put up affirmations, or I'd go and I'd do silent retreats. Maybe I just need to clear my head. I just need to set things straight. Or I'd get a gym contract, and that thing would last 2 weeks. I don't know how many I've taken out that just maybe last 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. Just all fizzles out. I try every known idea. Why don't they work? We are beyond human aid. 3 pertinent ideas. We're alcoholic, that no human can relieve us of our alcoholism, that God can and will if he was sought. So he shuts himself up in an asylum. But here's a couple of other things that we try. We shut ourselves up in rehab after rehab after rehab. Maybe we hole ourselves up in AA meetings 24/7. Maybe we're holding ourselves up. Just think of the methods that you've used to get this jaywalking idea, and how to protect yourself, you and that drink, exactly like Bill was saying just now.
So what is why would he go to an asylum, Nadia?
He needs to stay away from the alcohol. That's a problem, right?
Occasionally, even an abnormal or slightly impaired mentally individual knows there's something wrong with him. So at first he thinks the problem's alcohol, so I'm not going to drink no more. Then he drinks against his will and says, Jiminy Christmas, I'm not going to the bar anymore. I'll try and do better next time. Now you're saying, finally, I lost my job. I can't even show up at work because once I start drinking, I can't stop. He can't go to work because every time he goes out of the house, he runs in front of something and gets crippled for months on end. His wife gets a divorce. She says, I can't deal with the instability and the inconsistency of this life. I did not sign up for this. And he is held up to ridicule. Friends say, you had such a great wife. Life was wonderful. What's wrong with you? You should be. Back of them is a world of ignorance to people who see our alcoholism from the outside in. Now it says he tries now. I'm trying the desperate experiment to not drink on my own power. And I'm trying to get the obsession out of my mind. He shuts himself up in a psych ward. I'm crazy. I can't control my thinking. I'm going to go into the booby hatch and see if I can get medicated by a psychiatrist because something's wrong with me. My life is out of my control and I can't stop it. Hoping to mend his ways. Maybe he'll get a turnaround. Maybe a doctor will give me something to remedy the phenomenon of craving, right? It says it's never been eradicated, not in our lifetime or yours. Science may one day accomplish this, Nadia, but it hasn't done so yet. But the day I get out of detox, the day I get out of treatment, the day I get out of jail, he races in front of a fire engine. Now, even the devastation he's placing himself in, some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find relief or companions of that level. We did, and then we drank beyond those sordid levels. They were saying, we got to stay away from you, which breaks his back. Now the damage is now it's really starting. I didn't get 90 days probation or 30 days in the workhouse. They just snatched 5 years of my life for my bad behavior and what I do under the influence of alcohol. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Well, we've already seen that. He's checking in the booby hatch. He can't live up to his word. He can't keep the promise or commitment to himself or others. He's lost control of his thinking. Go ahead. It's about to get exciting. I'm sure I'll be inspired again in a sentence or two.
You've just reminded me of the insanity of this disease. It's like I'm hearing this for the first time. Wow. This reminds me of that sad day on Armistice Day when Bill, on page 8, is telling another soldier about what alcohol's doing to his life. And as the tram stops, they get up and he gets handed a drink and he takes it. This is hearsay, but anyway, the guy says to him like this, you must be crazy. You must be insane.
That's what else it also elaborates. Now, there's a fine line between powerlessness and insanity. They're giving us two descriptions here. You follow what I'm saying? The insane thing is to lock myself up to an asylum. He's powerless to stop the behavior. We are powerless before the first drink. All of us have experience galore with the phenomenon of craving. I know once I put the drink inside of me. But not only is it an insane idea to not take the first drink, what the recognition here is, I'm powerless over the obsession. See, there's a difference between insanity, me taking a drink, knowing that it's going to be bad, and me taking a drink because I can't not drink. In other words, I'm compelled to take the first one. We see that as insanity from the outside. He recognized it as defenselessness or powerlessness before the first drink. I mean, this is a deep, deep statement they're giving us here. This guy's more than crazy. He doesn't have the ability to do anything about it.
This is akin to possession. He's possessed by this thought to get it. It hijacks him. And here's a beautiful, I received such a beautiful, one of these reels on the social platforms this morning of the story of Evel Knievel. So like, this is perfect, right? Evel Knievel jumped on his motorbike across the Grand Canyon. And I don't know, there's a whole lot of amazing things that this man did in the search of having queer ideas of fun, and broke many bones. I believe he has a drug and alcohol history as well, wife that left him, people that beseeched him to stop, and people that paid him to continue. And so Evel Knievel's life goes on. His name's actually Robert. And on the 1st of April, 2007, Robert had a spiritual experience similar to Bill Wilson, a white light experience. You can go Google it. He heard the voice of God who said to him, it's time to stop. You need to help my children. And this man changed 360 degrees on April the 1st. It's so awesome. I love that. Evel Knievel is our Jaywalker friend. Rob's not here tonight. He would have dropped it in the chat, I'm sure. So yeah, just the reason that I gave that is because the solution to our disease, this is a spiritual answer. It's a spiritual solution, and it's in the appendix at the back of this book. It requires a psychic change. It requires a spiritual awakening. This disease, like Bill says, science has not yet found a cure. This disease, the solution is not in tablets, not in the next relationship, not in the next city, not in the gym contract, not in getting your head cleared. You need to have a spiritual experience, and the 12 steps are guaranteed to give you that.
So you understand that the consequences are what he's looking at. The consequences of his jaywalking put him in a position where he's getting pretty badly mangled. The consequences of my drinking will get me to look at my drinking, but the consequences of my drunkenness have very little, if anything, to do with alcoholism. If my mother drank enough alcohol and got behind the wheel of a car, she could kill someone by being impaired because of the effect of drunkenness, not the effect produced by alcohol, but the effect produced by too much alcohol. That is not the insanity they're talking about. The insane things I do in an impaired state are not independent to alcoholics. Anyone could fall into that class. What they're talking about is the insanity of the first drink, knowing the consequences aren't going to be good. They don't have to be criminal. They don't have to be civil. They don't have to be familial or marital. But the consequences for sure are this. When I take the first drink, it's going to produce a greater thirst than I had before I took it, and I'm going to overdrink, and my life is going to be out of control again.
Yep. We start the fire. We start our own fire that burns our life to the ground. Page 38. We're going to continue on the third paragraph. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous. Ask your sponsee, ask the newcomer, ask the one sitting in front of you that you're taking through the work. Is this your experience?
You kind of got stuck on, you stood still for a minute, Nod. So could you start that paragraph over and whatever you were saying? If you're even here
Thanks,
now,
Bill.
are you gone?
I'm here. Thanks, Bill.
Oh, there you
My
are. I'm
my
sorry,
bandwidth is funny, so that's great. Thanks. All right, page 38, third paragraph. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? So let's ask ourselves, let's just for a second, all of us here, all 18 of us sitting here tonight, all 18 souls, is this ridiculous? Is this your experience? If what Bill and I have shared here tonight, does this sound familiar to you? Ask your sponsee, ask the newcomer sitting across you, is this your experience? Dina, I see your hand. At the end of the hour, we'll be turning to the comments and your questions. So awesome seeing you here. Who have been through the ringer, is that you? Have to admit, if we have substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us perfectly. I see some heads nodding. We're in the right, we're in good company here. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. This is what we call the kind of thinking when we have an untreated mind. That is insanity, an untreated mind. It's strong language, but isn't it true?
Yeah, notice he didn't say if we substituted jaywalking with drinking or drinking with jaywalking. He says if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, we're dealing with the condition known as alcoholism, not the drinking or drunken condition, but a condition of spirit. Because we read earlier, when a certain type of thinking, and I bet you this guy has it because he said, guess what? I'm going to stay off the streets or what's the use anyhow? When that sort of thinking is established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up in perpetuity, will die or go crazy. It also talks about what we used to talk about in meetings a long time ago, and they still do. I heard it yesterday. Once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it can no longer go back to being a cucumber. I always thought that was the invisible line they were talking about it, and perhaps it was when I cross over the threshold into a phenomenon of craving and now have the allergy. But there's another realm that talks about once we have entered into this region, and it's not a region that we travel in this realm, that's when we head off into the abyss through which there is no return through human aid. Let him try and leave alcohol alone. If he has entered into this region, scant chance for his recovery. That means very little. Scant. Word of the day. Scant and breviloquent, which means brief of words, which I am not doing. Breviloquent, the password is.
Last week, the password was love and tolerant. Okay, let's go have a look at what Bill's talking about. We got to make sure that this. All right, let's go have a squiz. First one is Beyond human aid. Let's go have a look. Page 24. Page 24, the 5th paragraph. It says there, when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. So that was the first reference. And the second one is, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the page number. Anyway, I'll find it. I'll drop it in the chat. I don't want to pause too long here. All right. Page 38, the last paragraph on that page. Some of you are thinking, yep, what you tell us is true, but it still doesn't fully apply. I wonder if there's someone in here tonight that's thinking like that. Hang on, just stick around, stick with us and hear what goes on. Let's go look at some other thinking that centers that first drink that you pick up stone cold sober, knowing what you know, knowing full well that you'll end up in hospital, knowing full well your wife's told you 1,000 times she's going to leave, but the last time you saw her, there was a tone in her voice, a look in her eye that you knew she means business. Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we've not gone to the extremes you fellas did. Peeing behind dumpsters, in and out of jail, 3 divorce cases. I haven't got that track record yet. Nor are we likely to, for we, whoa, guys, if you have a red pen or a red highlighter or something really that pops, this is the biggest lie that we tell ourselves. And we believe it time and time and time again. Listen to this. If we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us, such things cannot happen again. Self-knowledge is what self is telling us. If I understand all of this, I'll be fine, because then I understand myself. I got this. I got this. This is what self does. Now we're going to go and look at what self-knowledge, how it avails us nothing. There's a couple of page references that are going to come up soon. We're going to bounce into the big book again, bounce back and forward soon. It says here, we have not lost everything in life. So some of you might be sitting here having heard Bill's story, having heard a bit of my story and going, geez, we're not as bad as these two cats. Is that the case? We've not lost everything in life through drinking. Some of you are still sitting here. Homes are intact. Families are intact. Hubby's a little bit annoyed. Wife might be a little bit irritated. Thanks for the information. That's a really polite way of saying, fuck you, I got this. I don't need this. I've done that, but I'm fine. Page 39, we continue. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. Guys, there are over 260 promises in this book, but you know what? Not all of them are juicy and delicious and lovely. This is one of them. This is not one of the juicy, delicious, lovely promises. But if you're an alcoholic like me, our brains and bodies are badly damaged. And I just also want to make a little caveat. If you're sitting here with us tonight, you probably might know what we're talking about here.
You know, Nadia, you made a statement. If you heard our stories, you might not be as bad, or whatever that means. It was explained to me that the bottom is described in a vision for you when it talks about knowing loneliness that few people know. I can't connect with another human being. I'm blocked from God and I'm at odds with myself. Being at the jumping off place, wishing for the end. That may very well be the mutual bottom that we all suffer from. Some people actually jail well. Some of them even do prison well. Some of them become institutionalized and enjoy that. Some people go in and out of detoxes and treatment centers. They sleep on people's couches. They don't mind being homeless. That's not necessarily the bottom. That's the acceptable or even unacceptable involuntary position that alcoholics find themselves in with the craving in place for drinking. But that's not necessarily the bottom. And sometimes we celebrate that in AA, the more horrid the physical aspect, the more trouble you got into, the more bizarre things that you've been through. We celebrate that. But I'm going to tell you what, when you get to the point where you want to take your life and you're not even drinking, that may very well be the only bottom we have to look at. Because if not, what happens is rather than identify, I begin to compare, which is separation, disconnection, which is the opposite of connection or recovery. So we got to watch that when we say not as bad as me. I'm certainly not as bad as Nadja. I'd have quit a long time ago if I was that bad.
I love you. And you're allowed to say that to me. I want to tell you something. I love what you just said, where you took us. Let's go. Let's go, guys. Let's bounce. Boing, page 152. First paragraph in the middle. I'm going to read it again, and then I'm also going to share back on this because this is.
Then you might want to read a little further, like start at the bottom of page 151, because remember, they are talking about an alcoholic that's dry for a time. That doesn't mean he's not walking in the rain. It means he's not drinking. They called it dry. We call it untreated.
It's a special kind of hell, that. It's a special kind of hell. So before I read this to you guys, so let's get, Bill's right. Let's go to page 151, right at the bottom. I was in these rooms 18 months, getting my 18 months chip at the meeting. And I'm sitting at the meetings, I'm sitting on Zoom, and I'm being plagued by suicidal thoughts at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm being woken up, same like I did when I was drinking. You know, I drank enough to put an elephant to like down, right? But regardless of how much alcohol I had in my system, 2 o'clock I would wake up and I would lie there in that darkness with the thoughts and the arguments and the years and the memories and the what ifs and the what's going to happen and the driven by fear, self-pity, resentment, right? Now I'm 18 months sober. No, I have no alcohol in my body. I have no drugs. I am dry. I'm abstinent. And I'm being woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning by thoughts telling me, you're a shit mother. They're not with you. They don't want to be with you. It's better if you're not around. And I'm pulling at my hair and I can't move because I'm too terrified to get out of bed. And then I'm going to the meetings the next morning because I've got to get a meeting. I've got to get a meeting because I feel terrible at what happened to me last night. I'm sitting in the meetings and I'm looking at all of you and you're all like, hi, I love you till you love yourself. Everyone's happy, chappy, and just like, and I'm sitting there going, I don't feel or look like these people. Is this my lot in life? When I'm with the normal people, I feel like they get the manual to life. And then I come to the rooms of AA, the last place on planet Earth to get help, and I can't get help here. And I can't die because I don't have the courage. I don't have the imagination. I'm doomed. Listen to this. This is a description. I cried my eyeballs out when I read this. Now and then, a serious drinker, being dry, 18 months, not a drop of nothing in me at the moment, says, I don't miss it. I feel better. I work better. I'm having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, Nadia would have given anything to take half a dozen of drinks and to get away with them. She will presently try the old game again, for she isn't happy about her sobriety. I'm changing the story. I'm just changing this a little bit to line up with what I shared with you. Nadia couldn't picture life without alcohol. But someday she will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. The desire had been removed. I did not want to go to the bar. I would have had to force myself to pick up a drink because it had been removed from me. So alcohol wasn't a solution. Then she will know loneliness such as few do. I'm sitting in a room full of drunks and I don't belong. I don't belong in my home. I don't belong in the society. And yet I'm sitting with a group of drunks and I don't belong. I don't have what they got. Nadia was at the jumping off place. She wished for the end. Excuse me.
And sometimes when we use the word untreated alcoholism, that doesn't always indicate that they're not drinking, although that seems to be the common narrative we assign here in AA. We say that's untreated alcoholism or dry drunk. But untreated alcoholism is an alcoholic drinking. He's not treated. He's treating the internal spiritual malady with alcohol, but it is not treatment. What we have is a remedy. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the instructions neatly contained in this book. We'll probably get to them by about 2027 at this rate, but we will get to them.
You've got a lifelong sentence with me, my brother. All right. Oh, gosh. Okay. Back on page 39. Now we're going to talk about Fred. So there's 4 stories and more about alcoholism. There's the man of 30, carpet slipper dude. There's Jim, riddled with resentment. Okay. Now we're going to look at Fred. So you hear the terms high bottom, low bottom. So Jim is what we would classically term coin as a low bottom drunk with all that anger and resentment and like life's just not working out. But here we've got a high bottom drunk, Fred. You're going to hear all about him now. He's pretty much living a cloudless day life. Like things are just amazing. Let's go see what happens. I want you to do me a favor though. While we're traveling through these words and through this man's story, we're going to highlight a word there, personality. It's going to talk about it now. He has an attractive personality. Do me a favor and watch how that personality changes through the story. Watch the personality, okay? Fred, a little bit of history, AA history. This is Harry Brick. This is Alky number 5. That very famous AA photo of the 2 men with 1 guy in the bed and 2 guys sitting on the chairs. That's him. This is Fred. That's the legendary icon in that image. Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. Okay, he's top of the heap. His income is good. He's got the money. He has a fine home. Come on in.
Question, since we're belaboring this jaywalker guy. So it says at the bottom paragraph on page 38, and I know that I'm going backwards a little bit, but guess what? We're studying the book. I have not gone to the extremes some of you fellows have. What that means is I'm only getting tickets for jaywalking. And even though it's costing me a lot of money, I can deal with it. What's happening is they're telling us if you've got these symptoms, the day's coming where you're going to throw yourself in front of a fire truck. Because I want to look at the differences where you continue to go. What are some of the extremes? Some of us have prostituted ourselves in the name of one more. Some of us have given up our health, our freedom, our spouses, our homes. Not everyone coming into AA has gone to those extremes. That does not mean you escaped the illness. And here's what they're saying. Thanks for the information. I'll never get that far. I'll quit right before I lose my house. I'll just quit when I get evicted from my apartment, go buy a house. And the fact of the matter is it's saying that may be true of certain hard drinkers, which we've described over and over in this meeting from the untrained eye. Looking at them from the outside, they look identical. A hard drinker and an alcoholic can drink for drink. One is drinking voluntarily, that would be the hard drinker. The alcoholic is drinking involuntarily or compulsory. That's the difference, and you can't see it because they look the same. So this may be true of some certain hard drinkers who are drinking and getting into trouble, having consequences as a result of their drunkenness, but they don't have the illness called alcoholism, which means, guess what? They may be able to curtail, moderate, or stop altogether. And they may even need detox to get off the drunk they're on because they have the habit. But they do not have the mind of the chronic alcoholic, which is what the 12 steps is designed to treat. Just thought I'd throw that in case I didn't make it clear and re-clear and clairvoyant.
But amen, amen. That's something sad. We're hammering on that. The 12 steps are meant to treat. You know what? I just want to share something with you. Do you know, you see this book, this guide to living, this design for living? Do you know what this is? This is an invisible book. Put this on a table at a meeting. Tell those people the solution is in here. They don't see it, man. I didn't see this book for 7 years. Sorry. Okay, let's go. Page 39. We're talking about Fred. Fred is a partner. You know what? I'm going to, we've only got a few minutes left. I'm going to call this because we're going to dive into Fred. We need to look at who he is. And then we're going to go, this is a very powerful story. I don't want to lose momentum. So I'm going to stop recording. And then we are